So today is September 24th. It's been almost a year since October 7th. We're coming up about 2.5 weeks away from the anniversary of the war in Israel. And I have to give it to you that all of what is happening right now is being on Israel having the full defense for their cause. They were not the aggressors of the war against Hamas. They were always the defenders. It was October 7th and the terrorist organization that raped and killed 2,500 citizens of Israel. A lot of them taken hostages after that, killed in the underground tunnels that Hamas was digging for years prior to October 7th. And what I said on my Facebook and YouTube short is that how long will the media keep showing that Israel, falsely that Israel is the aggressor in this war? I was looking at this Fox Live. It was not Fox News, but it was a local affiliate. The reporter was like, Israel has sent 1,500 rockets into Lebanon, injuring 50 civilians and killing 2,500 people. And it made it look like they actually said that Israel was on the offense, which is technically, if you look at the technical term, they are doing an offensive strike, but after a self-defense move, because Lebanon was like, hey, you know what? Let's crush Israel. Let's help Hamas and aid Hamas on the attack against Israel and completely eliminate them. And they have this plan about wiping them off the face of the earth, and it happening through northern Israel, which if any of you guys know about Ezekiel 38 in the Bible, that the nations are going to come against Israel and it's going to happen from the north, and that the world is going to be reluctant to help. And you look at what's happening right now with the United States not even fully supporting Israel. They're supporting them financially, but withholding weapons, trying to de-escalate the situation. It's like, no, either you help Israel with boots on the ground or full military industrial complex stuff, sending them everything they need and more, sending them enough ammunition to fill the Red Sea, or you don't help at all. So if any of you guys have ever read the Bible on Ezekiel 39, it's basically saying that there's going to be 6 nations that come up against Israel: the Russians, the Syrians, who used to be the Persians. The only thing that hasn't necessarily come true is probably the Ethiopians joining the fight, or South Africa. But the idea is the coalition against Israel is growing stronger and it's uniting, and it's always been Iran who has been the tip of the spear towards the violence against Israel. And they do it through funding these terrorist organizations. I'm so tired of the news media calling them proxies, like these are proxy wars and proxy fighters. No, it's all Israel versus Iran, because Iran is not only funding these people, they're chanting death to America, death to Israel, and then we're still buying oil from them. I was telling a friend the other day, the Democratic Party's foreign policy of buying foreign oil is an appeasement strategy. Democrats have always been the party of appeasement. So they appease these dictators by buying their oil and basically saying, please don't attack us. So when this happens, they are appeasing the Iranians by buying their oil. But when they buy their oil, they fund terrorism against Israel, our ally. So it's very messy. What we have to understand is that the fighting is going to continue, and it's going to escalate until Israel wins. And we, as a country, either have to be for Israel or against Israel. There's no middle ground. There's no neutral zone. It's either all in or all out, because people are dying. And the United States, if we're going to freaking fund Ukraine and keep Russia off Ukraine's backs for the last 2 years, we better do it to our only ally who's stable in the Middle East. I mean, Saudi Arabia is kind of our ally, and we're kind of getting cozied up to them, and they're not like jihad, but Israel's our long-term ally since 48. So do you have the right as an American to be angry at what you see happening to the Israeli people? Well, the answer is yes. I would say that we have more in common with the Israelis and their fight for freedom than we have, let's just say, the Ukrainians and their fight for freedom. Yes, Ukrainians are in Europe and Israelis are in Israel. But the news media and CNN has dubbed Israelis as white. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Middle East or even known people who are from the Middle East. People in the Middle East are not white. And the whole idea is painting them as colonizers, like white men have to colonize the world. So you put white men in the Middle East and they are colonizing the poor brown skinned Gazans. So it's like white versus the, feeble brown skin Gazans, and that's the way it looks on the media. Like, these are colonizers, and colonizers have to be destroyed because colonization's evil. Oh, Israel is financially successful. Oh, they must have done it off the backs of slaves, but if you actually look at the history of Israel, they were slaves for 400 years, and they've been exiled more times then you have fingers on both hands. So we shouldn't be talking about, who's been slaves, who's gotten their money off the backs of others. Yes, there's generational wealth in the Jewish community, but it's because they're smart and they actually invest their money into businesses, unlike Hezbollah and Gazans who invest their money into rockets to shoot at Israel. Yeah, the whole thing is messed up. And as a Republican, as a Christian, if you're watching this, you should support Israel, not only verbally through your expression of freedom of speech, but financially if you can. If there's a way you can give to organizations that help Israel, it's definitely the time. And this is just a very dire need to know, because Israel did not want a two-front war. They did not want to fight in Gaza and northern Israel, which is Lebanon. And that's exactly what's happening now. So if the Iranians and the Russians, or Russian-backed Iranians, attack northern Israel, then the prophecy of Ezekiel 38 will be fulfilled. And in that prophecy, there will be a deliverance of Israel, completely wiping out the aggressors. So if this is actually happening from a Christian perspective, you should watch and you should tell your neighbors and friends, because we're not just living in the times. We could be living in a time that is more consequential than we could ever imagine. That also goes to the presidential election. So this presidential election is taking place, I think, in 41 days. Yeah, if I did the math correctly. And I would say it is embarrassing. I'm embarrassed as an American that people actually would vote for a woman like Kamala Harris, who is the flakiest person you can possibly imagine. Her policies are all over the chart. If you go on YouTube and you see her policies from 2019 as far as the gun buybacks, and now she's saying, oh, we're not going to take your guns. Absolutely everything she has stood for in the Biden-Harris administration, she's going against in the Harris future possible administration. Also, she declined the offer to join the White House Correspondent Dinner. And that has been a tradition that has been broke for 40 years. So even Donald Trump went knowing that they were going to make jokes about him. And the whole idea is to show your sense of humor and the side of you that is more appealing to the moderate. And it's this time where you can unite both parties on one table under one roof and actually have dinner with them and kind of roast them a little, make fun of them, saying like, whoever wins the election, we're still Americans after this and we're still friends. And she declines to go. So Donald Trump may be the only presidential candidate in attendance, which they're going to just roast her without her being there, which is a very bad political move. If she wants to be the one who claims to be the uniter of the American people, how can she decline such an offer to go into like an SNL sketch like arena and just put yourself out there for people to roast you, because ultimately that is what wins elections, is common ground and relatability, which she has declined to even have any of those attributes in her campaign other than her shopping for Doritos. So what would you say if you were face to face with Kamala Harris and you were to ask her a question about the American economy's future? She would say something like, well, we have to make an opportunity-based economy. That's the kind of junk that Joe Biden was saying back in 2020 when he ran against the most successful president in our lifetime. And there is no opportunity when inflation eats everything that you have ever worked for in the entire year, year after year after year. And there's no turning back when it comes to the amount of devastation that she has caused our economy. So you better understand, if you're voting because of a fear tactic, then you cannot honestly be trusted with your vote. You could be voting for the best intentions, but the only thing Democrats have to run off of is fear, and they're going to take our rights. And they do not mention the fact that they are shutting down freedom of speech, and they are shutting down the Second Amendment, and the ones who are really taking away the rights are the Democrats. And the same thing with saying that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. He's not, because democracy is the vote of the people, and you cannot have the vote of the people if there are only one candidate. There has to be two candidates. And if you shoot the other guy, that's not democracy. So saying that he's a threat to democracy is complete BS, and it's not something that should be spewed in this political campaign anymore. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you on the next one. Be sure to like and subscribe, and see you on the next episode of Right Politics.